All right, so this creative subtype, for those of you who are tech geeks, it's when your perceiving function, in this case, extroverted sensing or sensation, the dominant driver, that is analytic or assertive. But the judging function, in this case, introverted feeling or authenticity, that's the more receptive. It's a holistic version of that function. That's what makes the creative subtype. But for those of you who aren't type geeks, I'll just read some of the characteristics. Adventurous, bold, entertaining, expressive and curious, especially about people. Live for the moment, ideally with friends and loved ones. In touch with convictions, deeply appreciative of style and beauty. Bored by routine, can lack discipline, struggled in school, and gets tunnel vision. So this actually might be the most stereotypical version of the ESFP, is the creative version.
This is the one all the teachers had struggled with. You're daydreaming. Just pay attention. Stop getting up. Sit still and listen.
Yep, exactly. But of course, they have a lot of great strengths to them. They epitomize the get things going style. If you're familiar with Linda Barron's work, they take in a lot of information at once with extra attention to facts, people, and the physical environment, and they act on all of that really quickly. So there's a speed element to ESFPs that are the creative type.
Yeah.
They have just enough executive skills to keep things together and present to society, but it is definitely not something that they enjoy doing, unlike their more dominant brethren. And they usually have an eye for artistic details, which makes them very suited to the creative version of the subtype. So they have a strong artistic potential in everything they do. And so things that are really up their alley are things like acting, comedy, dance, DJing, fashion design, modeling, music, singing, sports, video blogging. And there's also a technical side that can come out with these ESFPs. And that technical side can be seen in things like advertising, banking, marketing, right? Marketing comes up again. But whatever it is that they're doing, the passion is actually working with an audience.
I think it's interesting just how, so that assertive, dominant, or driver function of extrovert sensing sensation, it's like, I'm going to go get the experience. I'm going to go attack it. I'm going to go out in the world and feel the richness of it. But the judging function, the introverted feeling or authenticity, being holistic, is more receptive, more open to the core values or how things happen. It's not as particular about it. And so you can see that the judgments of like keeping things in order, keeping things structured, all of that stuff is probably not on the radar as much because you're more open to just letting it happen how it happens. But you really want to go and attack the creative things in the world. So I think that's a very interesting difference between that and the dominant subtype.
Yeah. Well, and there's also more of a, I think that this is definitely less academic, but it's also more expressive.
Yeah.
And so there's not that like, did really well in school component, but there is a capacity oftentimes, especially if it's physical, to look like an expert the first time they're doing something.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's like the fast learning is a big piece of it. So they might actually be a little bit more autodidactical, meaning that they're self-taught. This is the more self-taught version of the ESFP. And because of that, there also might be a boldness to try new things. Right? There's not a waiting so much on the situation to present itself. The creative ESFP might go carve a niche for themselves, even more than the dominant ESFP, interestingly enough. And so there might be more of a courage to try new things and, go their own way.
Yeah, I mean, going their own way, being very independently creative, expressive, the individual being expressive. This is probably the most expressive of all four subtypes of the ESFP. The one that's going to be on the stage as the solo performer or something like that. If you see an ESFP in that role, they're probably that creative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And that willingness to figure things out on their own and having to teach themselves skills because school was not a great environment.
Yeah.
I think that ends up creating a bit of an appetite of self-improvement for a good percentage of creative ESFPs.
Yeah.
So they actually might be into personal growth. They might be into self-improvement, and they also might enjoy turning on light bulbs for other people. And so I think that's one of the reasons why they can also go into not just performance, but also into things that are, helpful for others as well.
Yeah.
And so they might get into human development to some extent, right? So that performance component, I've seen ESFPs who are performers in some way, but the point isn't to just get accolades from the audience. It's to actually teach a lesson.
Yeah.
And I think that that's not uncommon for creative subtypes as well.